Perfect. Great. So hi guys, and welcome to this webinar about erection planning. We call it Erection Planning 2.0 because this is, well, you could say it's in honor of the second version maybe of this project we're doing right now, making our erection planning module even more efficient than it already was and adding a ton of automation. So I'm Nick, and I have the pleasure of hosting the webinar for you guys today. And I hope you guys will enjoy. So the first thing is that we plan this to take approximately 1 hour. I think it will probably won't take a full hour. Let's count on hitting somewhere in between 30 minutes and 1 hour because this erection plan is actually so fast and easy to use. But of course, I want to show you guys. So now you might notice behind me is a bookshelf. This is of course because I'm working from my home office right now, in these uncertain times, but I think we'll be able to manage quite well anyways. So when I'm looking away from you guys, it's actually because I'm looking at my screen. So let's get started here. So the title itself, I wrote Impact Project / Production. And the reason why I write project / production is because we're actually talking about project planning here. And project planning could be the erection planning as we're doing here, but it could also entail the production planning of that said project, of course. We'll touch very briefly on that in this webinar, but only for the purpose of the actual automatic dates planning of the actual erection and planning it backwards into casting and transport. But if we take a look at the agenda, I made it very short because I want to spend as little time as possible inside this PowerPoint and as much time as possible directly within the actual software, of course. So first thing we're going to be doing is, we could call it the old stuff, things we've had for a time. And then we're jumping into a little bit newer stuff, which means things that we've released within the last 2 weeks. And then the last thing, which I call auto erection dates and date dependencies, or these two things combined. This is something new that we'll be releasing in the first quarter of 2021. So this version of the software you'll see me running on right now is actually like a test build from us to test that actual function works, and we can release it for you guys. So you'll be seeing something right now live that hasn't even been released yet. So perfect. But I don't want to spend more time on this slide here. So what I'll do is I'll just close it down and I'll open up my software instead. So now you guys, you should be seeing the project manager, the Impact Project Manager. And for the ones of you that are participating in this webinar that already use Impact, you are very familiar with this one. For those of you who don't, this is where we control our projects in. So what I have here is I have 2 buildings in my project, my building 1 and my building 2, which I've placed here. And the first thing I want to do here is I want to start planning a little bit. So this is the 3D model, and this is the elements that I actually have. So as per the agenda that I showed before, is the first thing we want to do is we want to add some cranes. And for me to be able to add some cranes, maybe a little bit more detailed than just placing them in some random place out here in the 3D model, what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll switch on the drawing grid. So the thin grid lines, hopefully you can see both the bold grid lines and the thin grid lines. The thin ones represent 1 meter in the model, and the bold ones represent 5 meters. So for me to place my cranes, what I'll do is I'll go to the top here just to make it even more easy for myself. And what I'll do is I'll start with the first building. This is the building I call building 1. So if I just double click building 1 out here in my browser, it'll isolate that one, of course. If I double click my model, I get my whole project. So I go into home here, and if I want to add a crane, it's quite simple. I click add crane. So that's what I'm going to do now. So clicking the add crane will pop up a dialog box for us. And in that dialog box, I can select which crane I want, of course, and where to place it, as well as some restricted angles. And of course, I'll show you guys just here in a second when we get it up there. So as you can see right now, I can select the type of crane. So right now I only have one type. This is the butane crane, but I'll just give this one a name, call this one crane 1. And you can see here, I have some boxes below that I call activated floors and activated phases. So I know that my building 1 here is in phase 1. And right now I'm only concerned about the first floor because it's the first floor that I'll be showing you guys today on this webinar with the erection planning, the date dependencies and so on. So we'll have roughly 75 elements instead of looking at all 300 elements at once, just to make it a little bit more simple for us in honor of the webinar itself. So I'll pick an insertion point here and I'll put a crane here. So that's the butane crane. Green, yellow, red lines, they show the capacity of the set crane. If I do a load check, to make sure that my crane can or cannot carry these elements here, it shows up with the colors if it can actually carry it or not. So you can see now I'm getting a bunch of red elements. And this is because I did one thing wrong. What did I do wrong here? We're looking at it from the top. So we restricted it to floor 1. And of course, it's floor 1 I should be focused on. So you can see here that some of the elements, they are red, some are green. Green means okay for this crane. Red means not okay. So either they're too heavy or they're too far away from the crane, which basically gives the same. Too far away combined with too heavy is the same, or if it's completely outside the element, of course. So if I want this crane to be able to place all the elements, of course I need to move it or put in another crane that can actually carry these. So in this case here, we'll just add another crane, call it crane 2. We put it on floor 1 as well. Place that one over here. If I do a general load check, all of my elements are now green. So one thing more I want to show you guys with the cranes, and one thing more I just want to change a little bit, again, just for the sake of the webinar, so it's as easy to follow as possible, is I'll actually remove this crane here, and I will move the other crane. So let's move it like this. When I have it this close, I know that it's definitely going to be able to carry the elements. Just did another load check just to be completely sure that it actually can. And you can see I'm going a little bit around in the model, back and forth between the 3D just to check it. And if I go into floor 1 and expand at the side, if you look here to the side, you can see there's like a green mark next to all of these as well. So what if the crane is restricted in some way? What if we have some other buildings or something like that makes it so? Give me 1 second, guys. There's one who says he has no sound. Okay, we can't just do anything about that right now. Sorry for that, Torbjörn. Hopefully you'll be able to see the webinar with sound when we upload it to YouTube. But back to the crane here. So this crane here, what if we want to restrict the angles? But because right now it just looks like we can just carry everything 360 degrees around. So what I'll do is I will take the crane and I'll edit it. I'll give it a start and an end angle. So starting at 0 degrees, 0 degrees in impact always means from the bottom left corner and out this line here, so out the X line. So that means that basically it should take from here and go up to here. So let's see if it does that. So there we go. The crane itself can carry these, as you can see. It's just across this line here, so should be okay with these ones. We can just do another load check just to be safe. But in general, that's how you manipulate the crane itself. So this is one of the old things, and when I say old, the cranes inside this project manager is actually not that old a feature. So I think for you guys that already have Impact, maybe some of you don't know the crane is already in the project manager now. For those of you guys who don't, the crane was usually in our 3D modeling software. This is our project management software, but we moved it here just to make everything easier and for the people that use it, of course. So that finishes up what I wanted to say about the cranes here. And what I want to do now is then do another, keep calling it old thing. So let's just keep at that one. And that is the erection sequencing. So my crane is placed down here, and I want to plan the erection sequence of this building. So generally for the operator of the crane, we want to have to be sure that he can see what he's doing. And for him to be able to see what he's doing, we need to start as far away from the crane as possible first, of course. So basically, I'll do it like this here and just start at this end over here and just move my way like this. But this sequence, and I'll selecting it in the sequence that I actually want right now. This sequence can be however you want it to be, of course. And of course, it depends on the way you want to work or the way you usually work. And what I forgot here was actually to switch on the erection planning module. We switch it on here, quite simple as that. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the elements. So you can see now they get an erection sequence number. And they already have an erection division here. And erection division is actually something new, but I'll get back to that and show you where it is, what it is. We can give them a crane already now as well. So if I select them all and just right click, simple as that with most things actually, give them crane 1. If I did have multiple cranes and one of them couldn't carry the other ones, they would be red instead. So I'm not going to do the plan direction date here because that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. So you can just add the plan direction date just as I've added the crane, or just as you would add the erection division here. But I'll do it later or afterwards instead, so you guys can see the automatic date planning backwards into transportation, producing the elements, and actually manufacturing the drawings as well. So I'm just clicking apply here. Now these guys have an erection sequence. And I'm just going to give the walls and the hollow cores and the slabs a go as well here. So we have everything. And in this case here, I'll just give it an order here for my just for my own sake, and add these ones as well. And here we could add the crane also if we wanted. So right now I'm not adding the crane because we don't have to add the crane. That means we erection plan the walls, the sandwich walls. So now I want to do the columns as well. And I'll just do everything here on floor 1. So you guys, you'll get an idea of the whole flow through it. And of course, if there's multiple floors, you just add to those multiple floors as well. I added the columns. I want to add my beams also. And then afterwards, we'll do a simulation of this. So you can have a talk with your crane operator. If it's the project manager that's planning it, he can have a talk together with the crane operator if it is actually a good way to do it. And then we'll go to the hollow core, the slabs, and the pre-stressed slabs will be the last ones. So there are multiple ways you can actually select this and get this erected. And I'm showing you different ways as well. When I'm doing it like this, where I'm drawing a line here, I'm clicking Control and Shift at the same time to enable the software to draw this line. And basically the erection number, if you look at the start number here, it starts where we left off the last time as default. We want to add some slabs. This is our balcony slabs and a couple of special slabs in the middle here as well. So this is just the way that this project has been sorted inside the Impact software. And just while doing this, because of course, looking at everything, it might get a little bit, tedious or boring to look at me selecting out 80 elements, 100 elements. The 3D models we're looking at right now, these were created in the Impact 3D modeling software. If you want a similar 3D model, you could also import from other software like Tekla, for example, so you also have the 3D model. And in this case here, I'll just draw this line. I'll just draw this line through as well. So that means that basically I have my erection planning done here. And if we double click on floor 1 again, it should isolate our floor 1. There we have it. We have our crane, we have our floor 1. And if now we want to simulate this together with our crane planner, we have the crane and we want to look at the erection sequence or erection dates. So we'll say we don't want to look at something we have not planned yet. We only want to look at what we have actually planned and just give it a play. So here we can see where we start from and where we end. And if I fast forward in a little bit, so it's a little bit faster, then you can see how it's going to be set up here. And it's a very, very good way to start a meeting up with how you want to set this up, of course. So this was also the old stuff. And then we get to the new stuff. And with the new stuff means still things that have actually been released for you guys. So things that you can take on, start using right now. And especially for those of you who already are using Impact, but no less, of course, for you guys that aren't, I want to show you how you actually use it, because there are some things we need to get in order for it. But basically what we want to do is, I can show you very quickly here. If we go into the element ID and we take maybe the first element, one of the sandwich panels, and I set a date for it. So maybe I want to erect this one the 23rd of December. So I know the 23rd of December, close to Christmas, the team will probably manage. What happened now, I just click save and it filled out the planned delivery date, storage date, production date, and drawing date. The planned drawing date is blue. Blue means you have to hurry. But if you take a close look at this date, we look at the date today, the 8th of December. So the drawing actually has to be finished today. So this is why this one is blue. But this is the point of it. But then how does the software know how many days we need for each thing? So you can see the delivery date is the same as the erection date, but the storage date is the 16th with the delivery date the 23rd. So this is something that we put into the software to make sure that our company, or the way that our company want to do this, how far ahead of the actual planned delivery do we want to store the element, just for security purposes? Maybe something goes wrong, maybe we need to repair something. The same thing from production to the storage as well, of course. Well, this is handled inside our project properties. So if I jump into the project properties, you will see here, this is where you create the project as well. If I go down to the bottom of the general one, we have rough planning dependencies. Use rough planning dependencies. In my case, yes, please. Give a warning if the dependencies are not fulfilled. Yes, again. Then the order of the dependencies. Right now, it's from the erection date down through to the drawing date. It could also be the other way around. And then here is the required date, or sorry, not the required date, the required time between these things. And the required time here is in days. And it's not only in days, it's in working days. So calendar working days. So that means that from delivery to erection, 0 days. From storage date to delivery, 5 days, 5 working days. That's what makes it from the 16th to the 23rd in this case, and so on and so forth. So this is how you actually do this. And if I change it in the project manager, it'll change the way it works out here. So what if I change something now, for example, that the drawing date? This is not really possible for me. So let me double click it, say on Friday. Now it says this warning here. You want to update all the rough planning dates using that date. And if I say yes, well, then it gives us a new erection date. And it'll say you can't erect it before that date. And of course, this is just the dependencies. You can always go with the no. You can always select you don't want a warning as well. And once you've done it the first time, you can also switch it off. So this is for our rough planning, of course. So this gets us into a little bit of the actual production planning as well of this webinar. This is like 1 minute or something like that. So if I take this element here and I move it down, say I want the element to be produced today instead, or sometime within the very near future. But let's go down, let's produce it today, move it down here. Then take a close look at the planned production date here and look at this one. Now it is no longer fulfilling these required times. Should we update the planned dates using the planned production date? Yes. Now we get a problem with the planned drawing date, of course. It's red because it's already too late. So maybe you know this drawing will be finished today. It just might make it to go out to the production. Probably not because we're already in the afternoon, but this is the point of these dates actually changing here. So the fine planning will change, but only changes what we actually do and backwards. So it didn't actually change the planned direction date in this case. Well, let's remove this one here. So we still have these days that we planned before, but let's do a transport planning instead of this element. And let's say we want this element on some sort of truck. I'll just put it on an A-frame. We can put a delivery date and time, load date and time. Let's put the delivery date to the 24th instead. Maybe the load to the 23rd. But again, this is not about the actual transport planning. This is about the rough planning that was actually done up here. Because I set it to give me warnings, it does give me warnings every time I change something. So notice now what it changes. So we look at the planned delivery date, which was the 16th before, jumps up to the 24th. But then because I no longer have this element planned for production, it's only rough planned, it's allowed to change the actual production date as well. So there's a lot of these dependencies back and forth between the things that just add up to help us doing this, you know, as easy as possible and being as easy as possible for us. So let me just delete this one as well. And basically, this is what the date dependencies mean. It means that if I put in a date, right, the 25th, and save, it plants it backwards. So that's the whole point of this, of course. But what I'll just do is I'll just select these two here and I will clear out the dates. So planning here, and I'll clear the dates. Why am I clearing the dates? Well, because I want to do it a little bit more automatically than what I'm doing already. So Parvez Salam asking which software is this? This is the Impact Project Manager, Parvez. So you can go into our website, StruSoft.com, and read more about it, and there's contact information as well. Great. So Now we're coming to the real fun stuff, the real good stuff, where everything comes up to a little bit like a higher level. What is the point of adding the cranes? What is the point of adding the erection sequencing? What is the point of adding the date dependencies? All of those things together, plus a few more things that I'll be showing you now, of course. Because one thing I mentioned was the erection division before. And if you are very sharp and following along very well, then you notice also I also have erection times here. So what is the erection time actually? We'll start with that one. And I'll just open up our settings software, the standard admin. And in the standard admin, of course, this is where we do all of our settings for automatic drawings, for automatic things like that. And this is also where we take the element types and give it, let's call it a standard erection time. There are always special cases, special elements that take longer time. In those cases, we can just write it in manually next to that specific element. But here, in my case, well, my team usually takes 1.2 hours putting up rectangular beams. Usually they can put up a solid wall just under an hour, or a sandwich wall in 1 hour, or a hollow core in half an hour. And of course, that time that they spend on that is directly relatable to the time that they have on the site. And that's the next thing I just want to show you guys. So here they're set. I can just double click to change whatever I want to change here. But the times on the site, actually, I'll close the standard admin down so we can look at it here. I called my erection division erection crew 1. This is my way of doing it. It doesn't have to be specifically an erection crew, but that's the way I typically plan it. So you can have all of your erection crews, put them where they need to be, and so on. But if you take a look at this time capacity under my erection crew, you can see I have, starting from yesterday actually, 10 hours a day. And this is because yesterday I was in creating this for the webinar, of course. And then all the way up to the 1st of February. That's the time when I know when they're there. So you can see there's some red dates when it says 0. This is because I'm assuming these guys are not allowed to work in the weekends. But the same with the 24th and 25th of December, at least here in Central Europe. And the available time, of course, is 0 because we'll probably want to have our Christmas holidays then. But this is the times that I look into. So my eCrew 1 has 10 hours per day. And just before we jump into it, there is one last thing about the times. And that is, if I go in to my building 1, check out my floors, I have some crane time as well. So I know I'm talking a lot about time. It'll all make sense in 1 minute, I promise you guys. It says here crane time 0.2, 0.2, 0.5, 0.7. This is calculated by the time the crane is in the air or the extra time we want to put onto these elements. So you can see I put 0.2 for floor 1, floor 2, but 0.7 for floor 4. It might be that you're doing something with 20 floors. It might take a little bit more time to erect the elements on floor 20 than it actually does on floor 1. But here we can use the crane time instead of having to change the actual time of the elements. So if I close this one down as well and go into my element IDs now, I already put my erection division on them. If I want to change it, it's simply right-clicking, planning, and changing it, or double-clicking. So simple as that. But this is not what I want to do now. So right now I have my whole first floor of my building 1. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting the whole thing. So all of the elements, if I go down like this, there are 74 elements in this case here. And I'm right-clicking it. So Another button has popped up for those of you who already use Impact that you haven't seen before. For those of you who are not using it, of course, you haven't seen the other ones either. But this one is called Calculate Erection Dates. And this is where everything comes in together. This is where we pick an initial starting date, and are we decreasing or are we increasing? This means, is it a starting date or an ending date? And now I already set starting date. So for me, in this case, I want to start erecting the 23rd of December. And I'm starting erecting my element 1 here in this case, of course, the element with the erection sequence 1. So let's just get back to this one again. We could choose decreasing. You can see then it will finish, it would need to be started last month, which is not good. Or we could use increasing, of course, and then picking different dates for this. But I want to start the 23rd, as I mentioned before, and just apply this. So if I click save, exactly what you think will happen will happen. It'll fill out all the dates here backwards. So it just took it a couple of seconds because, of course, now we're doing it with a lot more elements at once. But the good thing here is that I'm showing you live on my screen so you can see what it is here. So if we just take a look at the planned erection dates here, we have the 23rd. We can put up 8 elements. In this case here, starting from then, because we have the crane time and the element erection time combined, of course. Then jumping to the 28th, because we are having Christmas holiday. And after the Christmas holiday, there's a weekend. So they won't be able to erect anything from the 23rd to the 28th unless we specifically specify that they need to do that, of course. But we can just roll down here and we can see that if we start on the 23rd and we finish on the 6th, if we need to erect the element here, if I click it, just this element, 2 seconds, let's just click this single one here, which has the erection sequence number 74. You'll be seeing that we erected the 6th. It needs to be delivered the 6th. It needs to be on storage the 30th of December. It needs to be produced by the 29th, and the drawing needs to be finished by the 22nd, again, because we have the Christmas holiday. If I just go into my model view, I can also see which element I have selected, of course. So basically, this puts our dates on. And one thing that is very powerful to do in this case is if you're working on a tight schedule here, and now we're just rough planning still, we haven't exactly planned it down to the exact place we're producing it. It might be, you know, which factory hall it is or exactly which form table we put it in. But we have the planned drawing dates. So for the drafters that are using the project manager, they might do something like this, filter out the planned drawing date. So for me, if I play the role of a drafter now, I can see that I have 8 elements that I need to finish by today. And then I can relax a little bit because the other ones that we needed to erect because of the Christmas holidays, I actually have a little bit more time to finish those. So instead of having only one more day for me to finish the drawing, I actually have a few days. So that means the other batch of 8 drawings, I don't need to finish by until the 11th, of course. This is just in this case. Hopefully you won't spend 3 days making 8 elements. Hopefully you will spend 3 hours making 8 elements or less. But this is just one way of filtering it out, just combining these different things together. So just jumping in to, you know, what more happens now, I'll actually jump back into an old feature again. So what we'll do is we'll go into the erection planning here, not the erection planning, sorry, the simulation. And instead of having the erection sequence, we use the planned erection date. So what happens when we use the planned erection date instead? You can see we have start date and we have an end date. The start date that we specified and the end date that we specified. So if I click play, you can see it goes through the day and then it switches the day. So we can see exactly which elements go up on which day when we click play for this. And I'll just see here, Ahmed, there is a little question for you here. So setting in a buffer date between the production and delivery, exactly, yeah. So the buffer date that you can set in, Ahmed, here is this one here. So the date difference in between production, storage, and delivery. So you could set in the buffer between production and storage, or the buffer between storage and delivery, just how you want to do it, of course. And there is another question here, of course. With all capacity, production running project, or planning is happening with looking only to the project we're planning. So this is the project manager we're looking at right now. So this is the project itself. If we're looking at the resource manager or the tender quantities, we have our different pieces of software where you can check your workloads and check your projects against each other. And that's unfortunately a little bit out of the scope of this webinar, then we'll be sitting here all afternoon. But Ahmed, you're very welcome to go into the website as well, just as I mentioned previous. And if you want to know more, just contact us, just give us a shout. So one more thing I want to do here is I want to have 2 erection crews on this site at once because I have 2 buildings. Why not just erect them at the same time? So let me go to my building number 2. I will just show here so you can see right now, building number 2 is red. This is because my element color is the crane check. So let me just change the element color back to none in this case. And I just want to keep it simple to myself. I'm not adding more cranes now. I showed you how to do that before. But what I'll do is I'll basically just go in and plan the sandwich panels erection just as reference for it. And this is more so I can show you the simulation of the dates going next to each other. So if I'm selecting these in any given order, a little bit similar to the other one here. Now, sorry, it takes me a little time to click this because I should probably zoom in. But anyways, it's getting too late now as we've gotten them selected, of course. So once they're selected again, just as before, we go into our erection planning. But instead of starting at number 75 in this case, because I want to erect these things at the same time, I start at number 1 again. Click Add Elements. So now these get an erection sequence from 1 to 20 because there's 21, 20 here. It gets an erection division E crew 2. And in this case, usually this one would be empty. And this is simply because, of course, I did a small test before we went into the live webinar. But other than that, simply you select the erection division here in this case. So we have erection crew 2. We're starting the erection sequence at number 1. We're clicking apply. Now it says the following erection sequence is already in use. Are you sure you know what you're doing? And I am, because I want to erect these at the same time. So I'll just click yes. So there's one thing more I want to do just to get the dates on as well, just as we did before. And now instead of course, of having to do all of this showing you all where all this is, we just jump straight into and do it instead. So we're doing the planning, we're calculating erection dates, and we could use decreasing, we could use increasing. We just not need to select the date. Maybe we want to start a day before. No, we want to start the same day. In this case here, we want to apply, and this is me that only select one element. So let me just select them all and plan it here. Calculate the erection date to increasing from 23rd. Give me 1 second here. Need to get it to catch it. Here we go. Right click, plan, calculate the erection date to be not decreasing but increasing, starting from the 23rd. There we go. and just starting. You can see I'm clicking a little bit back and forth, and this of course is because this module has not been made finished yet. This is what we're releasing in the Q1, of course. So this takes from the 23rd and up till the 28th. But you'll notice another thing here is that these guys in my eCrew 2, they're actually working Christmas. We don't give these guys Christmas holidays, or they'll actually like to earn a bit more money in the Christmas and working the days there anyways. So we'll save the changes here. And we're getting all the way back to when we need to finish the drawings here again. So what this culminates with is here that we go to our model, we go to our simulation, and now we want to check out the dates for when we're building stuff. So the planned erection date here, or the erection sequence could be used. We're using the planned erection date. We don't want to show unplanned elements, and we keep clicking play. So I'll speed this down a little bit so it's easy to follow while I'm talking. What you'll see here is it puts up one element in one building, one element in the other for the days that we're working on both. And as you can see the days when these are coming up. So now we finished what we wanted to do on building number 2. Building number 1 finishes up here. If we go backwards again, just click the play button. The reason why it shows one then the other is simply because the simulation tool will always show one element at a time, so it won't pop up with 2 elements at one time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean though that they cannot be erected simultaneously on the site, because the time and the date are the same here in the planning, of course. So it's just a simulation, and the purpose of the simulation here that makes it look like this, of course. So that was the second building, and basically I think we spent 41 minutes. Basically, that's what I wanted to show you guys. How do we get automatic dates on a whole floor or 2 buildings while explaining how it works and talking at the same time in this short amount of time? And the software, of course, controls all the times for us. So what I will just do is I will go back to this one here and on to the next slide, because we're actually finishing up here a little bit. And now would be the time, if you guys have more questions, to prepare your questions, start writing your questions down, and I'll answer them just in a couple minutes. So one thing is, as I've already answered Ahmed and Parvez here, is that you can go to a website, StruSoft.com, to find out more about Impact, of course. That is both for you guys that are customers and for those of you guys who are not customers already. The same thing with the wiki. And what is the wiki here? Let me see if I can click the link actually, just to show you instead of telling you. So let's see what happens here. So basically, the wiki here is where we have questions and answers, where we have different explanations of what is. So if we click into the project manager, for example, which is the software we've been looking at today, you can see there is an explanation of what the project manager is and a bunch of links for you to click to learn more. You know, a description of the project browser, how everything works. So if you're really into the details, or if you're already a user, this is the place for you, of course. Back into our PowerPoint again. And basically, that was it from my side. So as I promised, it didn't take a full hour, but I'll give you guys just a few seconds to be able to write down your questions. Of course, I know I answered some questions along the way, so it might be that they're not so many more. But for more information, as I said, it keeps popping up here, StruSoft.com/impact to go straight to Impact. And there are buttons everywhere, so you can get in touch with us, of course. Great, and it doesn't look like there are any more questions, guys, but you're always welcome to write in if you have any more questions, and we'll get you sorted, of course. But basically, that's it for me. Let's conclude the webinar here, 15 minutes ahead of time, so we can relax a little bit extra in those 15 minutes, have some extra time for some coffee, some Christmas some Christmas coziness or something like this. And we'll see you guys on the next webinar. Take care. Have a good Christmas. Bye-bye.